Let's get started. So I'm going to start with a personal story, and then we'll get into the content for Anthropic employees. So my name's Tom Lowe, financial planner. I want to take you back to the late 90s. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting in my cube. I could hear the sounds of people high-fiving each other, the sound of people toasting champagne. And that's because we had just gone through what every startup wanted to go through in Silicon Valley. We just had our IPO. And so everyone was very happy. And then over the next few months, as the stock kept going higher and higher, people were even happier. And I thought to myself, hey, if this keeps happening, I'm going to be able to retire in my late 20s. So those of you who know history know that the dot-com bubble burst. I was at a dot-com, and my company shut down, and all the employee equity they had went to zero. So there were a couple important things that came out of that. One was that I realized I need to start to educate myself about how my employee equity worked, because it was an important part of my compensation here in Silicon Valley. And secondly, it actually started me down the path to making a career change into financial planning, which I did about a decade ago out of tech. And the reason I started this firm is because I wanted to make sure that people like you, Anthropic employees who've worked hard for the equity, get the most out of that. So that's why I built that firm, and that's why I'm here today. Let's get started. Okay, so this is for Anthropic employees, and the question is, how much should you sell in your upcoming tender offer? That is happening soon. So first of all, this, of course, is for informational purposes. You should always talk to your own professional. So I told you about my background, take a moment to do that, and then we'll talk about the steps you need to think about in this tender offer. Step one is really determine if you should sell your Anthropic equity during this tender offer. The next step is decide how much of it you should sell. And then we'll talk about next steps, and we'll have live Q&A. So any questions you have as we go through the slides, if you have any questions, feel free to drop into the chat. We can answer them in the live Q&A. Now, I've done a number of these. I know some people are perfectly happy to ask their questions in the live Q&A, but I know there are others who prefer to do it in a more private setting. So right now I'm going to put up, you should see a schedule now button, which if you click on that, you can schedule a free virtual Anthropic tender offer strategy session. Can answer questions about your specific situation. And so if you just click on that, you put time in my calendar, we can have a Zoom and do that. Okay, so let's keep going here. Again, worked in tech about 20 years, been doing this more than a decade, and I only work with tech people with equity. So that's why we're here today. So let's start with step one. Determine if you should sell your Anthropic equity with your tender offer. So I talk with clients all the time about this concept of concentrated stock. And that simply means that you own too much of a single company's stock. And my guideline is once you get above roughly 20% of your investable assets, that's probably too much. And that's just because there's a ton more risk and volatility versus a diversified portfolio. So the risk really is captured in this next slide. This is a slide showing you Silicon Valley Bank. So the stock went up and up, got to over $700 a share, and then in a short period, the bank failed. Okay. And this is the real risk of having too much concentration. So I have a planner who worked with someone who from Silicon Valley Bank who had all of his retirement still in Silicon Valley Bank stock, about $7 million worth. That went away, which meant almost all of his retirement went away. So that's the real risk. Something beyond your control happens, and a lot of your net worth goes away. So how do you determine if you should sell your Anthropic equity? So here, I'm going to walk you through the high-level steps and then walk through a quick example. So step one is calculate the total value of vested Anthropic equity. Just take the number of shares you got vested by the tender offer purchase price. Okay. Step two is calculate the total value of your investable assets. So that's your savings, your investments, your retirement accounts, 401k, add that all up. Add it to the value of vested Anthropic equity. And then step three is simply take the total value of vested Anthropic equity divided by your total value of your investable assets. You get a percentage of concentration. And step four is if that concentration is more than 20%, you're highly concentrated, and you should think seriously about diversifying to reduce your concentration. So quick example is, let's say you got 4,000 vested Anthropic shares. Say the price is $100 a share, so you have $400,000 of vested Anthropic equity. And then you add up your saving investments, 401k, rest of your assets, you have about $600,000. So you add the 400 of Anthropic plus 600 of the rest, you got $1 million total. You divide your 400,000 of Anthropic by your total of $1 million, you're 40% concentrated, which is greater than 20%. So you're highly concentrated. You ought to think about selling in this tender offer. Okay. Now, one thing to recognize is I have clients who come to me all the time who have 40%, 80%, 95% concentration in their company stock because they've been at a successful private company like Anthropic. So it's not unusual, but it is still something you want to think about doing something about, especially with an opportunity like a tender offer that you guys currently have. So again, if you want to talk about your situation, feel free to click on that Schedule Now button. All right, so let's talk about step two. Step two is, let's say you decide, okay, I'm highly concentrated, I ought to think about selling. Step two is, let's decide how much of your Anthropic equity you should sell with this tender offer. So the first thing is identify any valid near-term cash needs. And so example, this is where you know you're going to need the cash. Examples would be, let's say you have taxes on your equity. You're going to have to pay that. Or you don't have an emergency fund, or you can use it to build that. Or, for example, you say, okay, I want to buy a house in the near term. I know I want to buy a house in 6 months. It's a $3 million house. I want to put 20% down. That's $600,000. Say, go ahead and get the cash out so that when you're ready to buy the house, you have the down payment in cash. Okay, you don't have to worry about it changing if the value of the stock changes. So then the next step would be decide if you want to keep a certain percent of your Anthropic equity. So most clients come to me, they say, hey, I believe in the long-term future of the company. I want to make sure I have some stake in the future. So you need to figure out what percent that is. I typically recommend 5 to 10% of your investable assets, but you need to figure out what you're comfortable with. It could be 20, it could be 30. You just have to figure out what you're comfortable with. You take that, you set it aside, and you say, okay, I'm going to hold that long term. And then you're left with your remaining shares. So let's say you say 10%, I'm going to set aside, I'm going to sell some for near-term cash needs. Then whatever's left over, the way to think about, there are 3 ways of thinking about those remaining shares. One is typically with tender offer, this offer, the Anthropic offer, I don't think the information is out there yet, but often they'll have a maximum amount you can sell, some cap. It could be, X million. It could be Y% of your vested holdings. But what you could do is you could say, okay, well, I'm going to sell up to that max. Let's say it is 2 million. Then you can say, okay, I'm going to just sell 2 million, and I know that I have that out. Now, the benefits are you don't have to worry about the stock changing in value. You reduce your concentration immediately, and you have the cash. You can do whatever you want with to help you meet whatever goals you have. Okay. Now, most of my clients don't want to do that. So a couple of other versions are sell over time on a schedule. So you can say, okay, what I'm going to do, and what that means is you say, I'm going to sell, let's say, 25% each tender offer or liquidity event over the next 4 tender offers or liquidity events. And the benefits are then you're not going to sell at a low price because it's going to happen over multiple times. You also can spread your taxes out potentially over multiple years. And you do reduce your concentration over time. Okay. It also puts it on autopilot so that you don't have to deal with the emotion of, okay, is the stock high enough or is it too low? What should I do? It's on autopilot. You're trying to minimize the emotion. So you could pick whatever percent and number of events you want. So you could say 25% over 4 events being tender offer or liquidity events, or you could say, 10% over the next 10 liquidity events. And if there's an IPO, then you can just make it every quarter. But it's a way to, again, put together a schedule, put this on autopilot with an intentional way of reducing your concentration. Okay, and then another version of this is you sell over time on a schedule, but more when the price is higher and less when it's lower. So you could say set price bands. So for example, let's say the current fair market value is $100 a share. You could say, okay, if it is less than 100, I'm going to sell 15% of the remaining shares. If it's between 100 and 120, I'm going to sell 25%. If it's more than 120, I'm going to sell 50%. Okay. And then each tender offer or quarter or liquidity event, you could say, okay, where's the price within those price bands? I'm going to sell that percentage. Okay. So the benefits, again, you're not going to sell the single wrong day because it's going to be multiple days. You can also spread your taxes over time, multiple years. And then you do get to sell more when the price is higher and you sell less when it's lower. So some clients like it doing it that way. So that is the other way I would think about deciding how much you want to sell of your Anthropic equity. All right, so let's talk about next steps. So again, if you want to schedule a free virtual Anthropic tender offer strategy session, click on the Schedule Now button, and I'm happy to chat with you. So before we get into the Q&A, I just want to tell you what I call our happy path story. It's a client who came to me. They had a lot of equity, and they're trying to figure out kind of when to sell and what to do with it. Okay. And so we sat down, we talked about their big goals, and those big goals included they wanted to buy a house here in the Bay Area. They had 2 kids. They wanted to fund college for the kids. And they also wanted to get to financial independence early. So we took a look at the equity. We put together the plan for selling, just like we talked through here. We sold over time. They were able to buy their house that they wanted, their dream house. They funded college for their kids. And now they're on track to get to financial independence early. So they were able to get to their goals, figure out how to sell, diversify their concentration, and achieve their goals. And that's the opportunity you have as Anthropic employees through this tender offer is you can reduce your concentration and be able to move closer to whatever your financial goals are. So that's what happens ideally. So let's take a moment and answer any questions that you have. Take a moment. Not seeing any in the chat right now, but if you have any questions, let me know. Okay, not seeing anything right now. So I want to thank you for taking the time to join the webinar. Everyone who signed up will get a recording of this webinar. And if it was helpful for you, feel free to share it with colleagues, other Anthropic employees. Thank you again for joining.